I've spent over 40,000 hours editing, but when I first started, I had no idea how to make edits that stood out and moved an audience. So in this video, I've compressed everything I've learned in those 40,000 hours into 9 lessons you can use to create emotionally impactful edits that will help you land the higher paying editing projects you want. Lesson 1. When I started out, I thought great editing meant more complex transitions, more video layers, more effects. I even spent months learning color grading, thinking that it would set me apart, and none of it made a real difference. Then a mentor pulled me aside and told me I didn't need more, I needed to focus on the right things. And when I look back at my most successful edits, most of them came down to one video track and a few tracks of sound design, emotion, story, and rhythm. The more experienced you get, the more you realize it's all about the fundamentals. So lesson 1 is start being boring. Get back to what the best editors have been doing for decades and let those fundamentals do the work. When done right, your simple edits using boring fundamentals will stand out more than any retention editing or edits with fancy graphics, and you'll start getting noticed to work on higher paying projects. And if you want to know the 5 fundamentals I follow, emotion, story, rhythm, sound, and action, download my free editing guide at the link in the description. Lesson 2. In his book, In the Blink of an Eye, legendary editor and one of my personal heroes, Walter Murch, shares his 6 criteria for successful editing. And emotion sits at the very top. And it's not just number 1, he actually gives it a weighting of 51%, making it more than all the other criteria combined. When I started out, my emotional vocabulary was pretty limited. I was in my early 20s, so I thought maybe emotions were being sad or happy or excited, or maybe angry. But the more you develop as an editor, the more specific you can get. So instead of trying to make your audience feel happy or excited, why don't you aim for something more nuanced, like calm, peaceful, satisfied, or even safe? Instead of sad, what about heartbroken, lonely, or empty? That level of specificity in what you're targeting in your audience is really what separates edits that kind of work to edits that are truly successful. So before you even touch your timeline, I recommend identifying 2 or 3 moments in your edit where you really want the audience to feel something. And for each one, pick a target emotion and be as specific as you can, and bonus points if you write it down. So lesson 2 is pick specific emotional targets. Now you're editing with intention, so you'll know when something isn't working because you'll have a real target as your North Star to measure against. And eventually, if you keep doing this, you'll stop second guessing and you'll start feeling confident in your decision making. Lesson 3, a common misconception I run into all the time is that story structure only applies to the narrative feature films you see in theaters. And that is simply not the case. Audiences respond to conflict, rising action, character arcs, resolution, climax, regardless of the format. And I've used story structure to elevate my work across many formats, from talking head interviews, product demos, trailers, and even 30-second or 15-second commercials. And here's a simple framework for you to think about it. Something needs to change in your story, no matter the type of video you're working on, about every 25% of the way through the edit. And it doesn't have to be super dramatic. It can be a shift in tone, a new character. But if you get a quarter of the way through and nothing has changed, you will start losing your audience, because story, or good stories, are about change. So before you start cutting, break your edit into 4 sections and ask yourself what changes at each one of these points. And if you can't answer that question, you probably have a story problem, not an editing problem. So lesson 3 is plan your story structure. Now your audience will stay engaged, your edits will stand out, and you'll start attracting the creatively fulfilling projects you want. Lesson 4. There have been scientific studies showing that different patterns of visuals can trigger different emotions. As editors, we have a real influence over how our audience feels, and a lot of that runs through rhythm. Here's my favorite way to use it. Establish a tempo in your edit. Then at one of those points you picked out where you want to evoke a certain emotion, change the tempo drastically. Like this in a scene from a short I edited, I went from around 10 cuts per minute to 33 cuts per minute.
Mira, él lo tiene. ¡Quítenlo! ¡Ve por él!
And that contrast evoked a sense of urgency and excitement in my audience, and that was one of my emotional targets. So lesson 4 is use rhythmic contrast. Once you've mastered rhythmic contrast, you'll never have to sit there wondering what to do when you want to draw out an intense emotion from your audience. You'll know what to do without the guesswork. Lesson 5. Early in my career, sound design was always an afterthought. I thought, hey, my job is picture editor, and a sound designer or a sound mixer will handle the sound later. Then one day I brought a cut to my mentor, and I thought it was pretty polished. I thought it was done, and he watched it. And he simply said, hey, let me watch it again, but turn the music off. I had nothing else in there. No ambience, no room tone, no unique sound effects. I really just had that one music track, and he knew that, and he was making the point that I was missing out on bringing out emotion with sound design itself apart from the music. So I want to share a simple 4-step framework for sound design that I use every day on broadcast TV commercials. Step 1, build your ambience and try to pick a few options and pick one that pushes your scene toward that target emotion. Step 2 is edit your dialogue and fill in the gaps with room tone if necessary so your cuts stay invisible.
We all know saving the world has its risks.
Step 3, this is what I think is the fun part, is adding specific sound effects for key moments and search for all those unique specific sounds for the shot that really bring it to life.
We all know saving the world has its risks.
In step 4, finally, this is where you add music last.
We all know saving the world has its risks. So Bob from HR has enhanced our health benefits by switching us to Select Health.
So lesson 5 is prioritize sound design. Your edits will start hitting those emotional targets that visuals alone will never reach. And suddenly, the clients that were looking you over will start to take notice. And if you want to practice my sound design framework on high-end projects for your showreel with direct feedback from me, click the link in the description to check out my editing program. Lesson 6. In my 20+ years as a pro, there's nothing that can waste more time than searching for the perfect music track for an edit. So over time, I finally developed a music search process that cuts my search time in half almost every time. So I'm going to give that to you so you can take it into your own edits today. First, before you start any music search, take a few minutes to decide what your emotional target is for the audience and write it down. Sound familiar? This is kind of a through line in all of my teaching. From there, work through 4 more questions. What genre of music best fits that emotion? What instrumentation within that genre brings out that emotion best? What tempo matches the rhythm of your edit? And how many instruments in that track? So lesson 6 is search for music intentionally. Not only will this save you time, but you'll start using music tracks that bring out those target emotions, and your edits will land with the audience, and it'll lead to the best editing projects where the audience is everything. Lesson 7. Most editors, when they're starting out, one of the first cuts they learn is matching on action. And I think editors end up going to it way too often. My problem with matching on action is you're really limiting your editorial options. Walter Murch offers a better alternative, which he calls nodal editing. Nodal meaning parts or pieces. The idea is that each shot contains its own distinct action. I let the action complete before cutting to the next shot, which allows me to pick the length of the shot and to establish the emotional rhythm of the scene.
5 minutes. Sorry. It's mine.
So lesson 7 is Use a nodal editing approach. Instead of letting the footage decide where you cut, you choose based on what emotions you're trying to evoke in the audience. Lesson 8. Most editors think editing is about cutting scenes. The more experienced you get, the more you realize it's really about how you connect them. So here are 3 that you can start using right away that will make your edits stand out. In Treasure Imagination, we used a match cut to go from the city to a cave by cutting on the action of a boy's hat coming down in the first scene and then back up in the next. So we made a very jarring location change elegant with this match cut transition. Next, we have a smash cut with sound carryover, and that's where you cut on the energy of an action and let the audio from the first scene drop you into the next. Then we have a sound advance or a J cut, and that's where you hear the audio of the upcoming scene before you see it. Later in the same film, a car horn from the waking up scene plays while the boy is still in his dream. So lesson 8 is focus on your transitions. Once you're able to seamlessly take your audience from one scene to the next, your edits will be way more successful and they will start leading to the projects you want. Lesson 9. I spent 4 years trying to learn editing on my own and I could not book a gig. I equated editing with software at the time and I was getting faster, I was learning shortcuts, but I wasn't actually learning the things that mattered most. Everything changed when I found a pro mentor who taught me real techniques and gave me feedback on my actual edits. The one true shortcut to having a fulfilling career as a pro editor is finding someone who is ahead of you at a level you aspire to, who will give you feedback on your work. It doesn't have to be me, but please find one. I promise it will save you years. So lesson 9 is get feedback from an editor who's ahead of you. You don't know what you don't know. So you'll stop repeating the same mistakes and you'll start compressing years of learning into months. If you do want to work directly with me to create emotionally impactful edits that land higher paying projects, click the link in the description to check out my editing program. Now you have the 9 most important lessons I've learned over 40,000 hours of editing, but you still won't be able to build a fulfilling career if you don't know the right steps. So watch this video next where I get my student Jacob a higher paying editing project in 9 minutes so you can do the same. Happy editing.